Right, 48.8 degrees in the northwest. But here's what S got me watching closely. Severe thunderstorms are lining up for southeast Queensland while parts of Victoria are still sweating through extreme heat. Is your area about to cop dangerous lightning, damaging winds, or both? Currently, the Bureau of Meteorology has severe thunderstorm warnings active for parts of Queensland, with over 3 million people potentially affected across the southeast. I am going to break down exactly when these storms hit your specific location, what the models are showing for the weekend, and why there's still massive uncertainty about Monday's rainfall. Chuck your location in the comments right now, and I'll give you a personalised forecast in tomorrow's update. Let's get straight into the timing. Brisbane, you are looking at isolated storms this afternoon, possibly severe, with large hail and damaging winds, clearing tonight, then patchy showers tomorrow. Gold Coast, storm activity ramping up from around 3 p.m. today, heaviest between 5 and 8 tonight, then easing overnight. Sunshine Coast, similar story, but you might see activity kick off slightly earlier around 2 p.m. For you lot in Ipswich and the Lockyer Valley, yesterday's storms were just the warm-up act. Today could deliver another round of severe weather, particularly late afternoon. Toowoomba, you are in the firing line as well. Storms developing on the ranges from mid-afternoon. Sydney currently 29 degrees. Tomorrow climbing to 32. Weekend looking relatively settled. Melbourne still dealing with that heat. 37 today, dropping to 31 tomorrow as a week change pushes through. Now here's the thing about these Queensland storms. The models are showing decent instability across the southeast, but there's a critical detail about wind shear that's creating some tension between what Access is forecasting versus what the European model reckons. I'll explain why that matters in about 3 minutes because it completely changes the severe weather risk for Saturday. Perth currently 34 degrees. Sea breeze should kick in around lunchtime, bringing some relief. Tomorrow looking at 31 with mostly sunny conditions. Adelaide, URE copping 39 today. Rough conditions for anyone working outdoors, dropping to 34 tomorrow, but still well above average. Hobart sitting pretty at 23 degrees, partly cloudy tomorrow 24 with light winds. Darwin in the middle of the wet season, 32 degrees with afternoon storms likely, typical for this time of year. Canberra, warm day ahead at 34 degrees, dry conditions. Tomorrow similar. Let me dive into what actually driving this weather pattern. We've got a surface trough sitting through inland Queensland and northern New South Wales, and that interacting with a very humid air mass that pushed down from the tropics. Sea surface temperatures off the Queensland coast are running around 27 to 28 degrees, which is pumping serious moisture into the atmosphere. The key ingredient we're rewatching is the mid-level wind shear. When you get strong shear like we are seeing today, storms can organise into supercells, and that's when you get your large hail destructive winds and intense rainfall rates. Newcastle, storms possible late this afternoon and evening. Nothing like what Brisbane's expecting, but still worth keeping an eye on. Wollongong mostly dry today, slight chance of a shower tomorrow afternoon. Coffs Harbour, URE on the edge of the action. Isolated storms possible, but the main activity stays to your north. For those of you in the Northern Rivers region around Lismore and Ballina, you could see some storm development this evening. Here's where the model disagreement comes in. And this is important. Access is showing the surface trough weakening significantly by Saturday morning, which would reduce the storm risk across southeast Queensland for the weekend. But the European model keeps that trough active and actually deepens it slightly, which suggests Saturday could be another active day. This 100-kilometre difference in trough positioning changes everything for Brisbane, the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. We'll have a better idea by tomorrow morning when the latest model runs come through. Geelong currently 35 degrees, uncomfortable conditions. Tomorrow dropping to 28 as southwesterly winds pick up. Ballarat at 31 today, cooler tomorrow at 24. Bendigo sweltering at 38 degrees down to 30 tomorrow. Shepparton, URE looking at 39 today, bit of a rough trot for northern Victoria, cooling to 31 tomorrow. Townsville sitting at 33 degrees with typical afternoon storm activity. Tomorrow, similar conditions. Cairns, you've been been copping consistent rain over the past few days. Some areas north of Cardwell seeing close to 200 millimetres in 24 hours. Today expecting another 50 to 80 millimetres possible. Tomorrow easing slightly but still wet. Mackay at 31 degrees. Humid conditions, scattered showers and storms this afternoon. Now let's talk about fire danger because this is critical. Total fire bans are in place for parts of South Australia and Victoria today. If you are in these areas, absolutely no outdoor fires, no mowing in the heat of the day, no angle grinders or welding. The combination of extreme heat, low humidity and gusty winds creates catastrophic fire conditions. Parts of the Mallee and Wimmera districts are looking at extreme fire danger ratings. This is serious stuff. Right, back to Queensland. Bundaberg, partly cloudy with isolated showers, nothing too dramatic. Rockhampton at 33 degrees, humid and sticky. Storm chance increases this evening. Gladstone, similar story, watching for storm development late afternoon. Mount Isa out west sitting at 37 degrees. Dry conditions continuing. There's one detail about Monday's forecast that got me concerned. And I'm going to explain this carefully because there's still massive uncertainty. Some model runs are suggesting a potential East Coast low development off the New South Wales coast early next week. Now, hang on, let me clarify that. This is not a guaranteed event. Currently, access is quite subdued about this system, showing maybe 10 to 20 millimetres for coastal areas. But a couple of European model ensemble members are much more aggressive, suggesting 50 to 100 millimetres possible if this low develops and stalls near the coast. The Bureau of Meteorology is taking the conservative approach right now, and that's probably the right call given the uncertainty. But this is exactly why you need to check back tomorrow, because if tomorrow morning model runs start converging on the more aggressive solution, we could be looking at significant rainfall for the New South Wales coast from Newcastle down to the south coast. Wagga Wagga currently 36 degrees, mostly sunny. Tomorrow 33 with light winds. Dubbo at 35 today, similar tomorrow. Albury on the border at 34 degrees, dropping to 28 tomorrow as that weak change pushes through Victoria. Actually, I should be more specific about what I mean by East Coast low. These systems form when you get a cut-off upper low interacting with the warm ocean waters off the coast. They can produce phenomenal rainfall totals because they tap into tropical moisture and then just sit and spin in one spot. We saw this happen earlier in the season and some areas got over 300 millimetres in 36 hours. I am not saying that going to happen Monday, but it's on the radar as a possibility. Launceston at 22 degrees, pleasant conditions. Tomorrow 23 with partly cloudy skies. Devonport similar, 21 today, 22 tomorrow. The Apple Isles staying comfortable while the mainland swelters. Bunbury down in Western Australia at 31 degrees. Sea breeze providing afternoon relief tomorrow 29. Geraldton further north at 36 degrees, hot and dry. Kalgoorlie inland at 38 degrees, typical summer heat for the goldfields. Let me check that again, actually. The latest access run just came through and it's showing slightly more organisation to those Queensland storms than the previous run. This suggests the severe weather risk might extend a bit further south than initially thought. Areas around the Gold Coast hinterland, places like Tamborine Mountain and Canungra, you could see some intense activity this evening. If you haven't already, chuck your location in the comments. I am seeing heaps of you from Newcastle asking about weekend storms. I am seeing Cairns locals dealing with all that rain. I am seeing comments from the Gold Coast, Brisbane, Sunshine Coast. Tomorrow, Video IL address specific questions about your local forecast because there is still a bit that going to change overnight. Mount Gambier in South Australia at 28 degrees, cooler than the rest of the state. Tomorrow, 26. Whyalla at 37 degrees, very warm, tomorrow 35. Port Augusta even hotter at 39 degrees, tomorrow dropping to 36. Alice Springs in the Northern Territory at 40 degrees, dry heat, tomorrow similar. Katherine at 34 degrees with afternoon storm potential. Broome up in the northwest at 35 degrees, building afternoon cloud. Here's what's happening with the bigger picture. We've got high pressure dominating the Tasman Sea and that S keeping things relatively stable for New South Wales and eastern Victoria. But the interaction between that high and the trough through Queensland is creating this corridor of instability. The jet stream is positioned well to the south right now, which is typical for this time of year. But we're re-watching for any northward movement because that could enhance the storm activity. For southeast Queensland specifically, overnight tonight into Saturday morning is when things should settle down. But here, S, where the uncertainty kicks in. If that trough remains active like the European model suggests, Saturday afternoon could fire up again. Could go either way at this stage. The difference between a quiet Saturday and another round of severe storms literally comes down to whether that trough dissipates or hangs around. Bit of a mixed bag for the weekend across the country. Western Australia looking mostly dry and stable. South Australia cooling down through the weekend, which is good news after this heat. Victoria, cooler weekend ahead with that southwesterly change. Tasmania staying pleasant. New South Wales, the coast could see some shower activity. Inland areas staying drier. Queensland, as I've mentioned, Saturday's the question mark. Sunday looking a bit more settled across the southeast. Now let's talk about those compounding factors. If you are in Brisbane and you've got trees that are stressed from dry conditions, and then you get hit with 70 to 80 kilometre per hour wind gusts from these storms, that's when you see branches coming down, power lines affected. If you on the Gold Coast and you get intense rainfall rates of 50 to 80 millimetres in an hour, that is when you see flash flooding in poor drainage areas. These aren't just abstract numbers. They translate into real impacts. Monday's forecast. Yeah, look, I'm going to need another 24 hours of model data before I am confident about what is happening. The potential East Coast low scenario I mentioned earlier, that could bring widespread rain to coastal New South Wales. Or it could just fizzle out and we get nothing. Genuinely, this could go either way. Check back tomorrow because the morning model runs should give us much better clarity. There's one location that could cop something unexpected, and that S, the Northern Territory S top end. While everyone S focused on the Queensland storms and the Victorian heat, there is a tropical low developing in the Coral Sea. Now, it is not expected to develop into a cyclone at this stage, but it's worth watching because these systems can occasionally surprise us. The monsoon trough is positioned favourably for development, and sea surface temperatures are certainly warm enough. Darwin and the top end could see enhanced storm activity next week if this system tracks westward. The latest runs from both Access and the Global Forecast system are showing similar evolution for this tropical system, which gives me a bit more confidence. But models struggle with tropical developments, especially at 5 to 7 day range, so there's still plenty of room for surprises. Right, let's talk fire danger for the weekend. Saturday, the extreme ratings ease across Victoria and South Australia as temperatures drop and humidity recovers. Sunday looking even better from a fire perspective. But we're re-heading into February, which historically is the most dangerous month for bushfires in southern Australia. Even with these cooler days coming, the landscape is dry, the fuel loads are high, and it only takes one hot, windy day to create dangerous conditions again. For those of you dealing with the heat right now, particularly in South Australia and Victoria, please check on elderly neighbours, make sure pets have water and shade, and if you are working outdoors, take regular breaks. Heat kills more Australians than any other natural hazard. 40 degrees might sound manageable, but when you factor in the radiant heat and low humidity, your body's cooling mechanisms get seriously challenged. I reckon the story of next week is going to be that potential coastal system for New South Wales and the tropical development up north. But we need to see how the models evolve. Weather forecasting at 5 to 7 days is still more art than science, especially with these marginal setups. Quick recap before I let you go. Southeast Queensland, severe storms today, easing tonight, Saturday uncertain depending on trough behaviour. Victoria and South Australia, heat easing through the weekend. New South Wales coast, watching that Monday system closely. Northern Australia, typical wet season activity with a tropical low worth monitoring. Tomorrow S video, I'll have updated model runs, clearer picture on that weekend Queensland forecast and more details on the Monday potential. The European model updates overnight, access updates early morning. So by tomorrow afternoon, I'll have all the latest data. If you've got specific questions about your local area, seriously chuck them in the comments. I try to read through as many as I can. And tomorrow S forecast, I'll address the common questions I am seeing. I know a lot of you are trying to plan weekend activities, decide whether to postpone outdoor events, figure out if you need to prepare for storms. I get it. That's exactly why these daily updates matter, because the forecast is constantly evolving. Really appreciate you watching. Tomorrow S update will be around the same time, mid-afternoon, so you'll have the latest information before the evening. Stay safe out there, particularly if you are in the storm zones tonight or dealing with the extreme heat. Look after each other, check on your neighbours, and I'll see you in tomorrow.